Please take your seats.
I got things to do.
Good morning and welcome to the August 18th, 2026 Board of County Commission meetings. At this time, we have called the meeting to order. We will have a moment of silence followed by a prayer by Pastor Stan Bowling, and then our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by General Counsel Jennifer Schuler. Please rise.
Let's pray. Lord God, we pause and we reflect on you for a moment. And we remember, kind of ironically, that you tell us to remember. You tell us to remember who you are, what you've done, what you are doing, and what you're going to do. It's all over your word. Remember. Passover, what it means. Bitter herbs. Unleavened bread, salty water, joy, sweetness, an empty chair, freedom to follow you. At the Passover meal known as the Last Supper, you say, remember me. What I'm doing, the offer I'm making, the way I'm providing. You say the Spirit is sent to guide and help us remember. How many times do we need to remember? At least as many times as we forget. So we start this morning remembering you. We pause and we remember what you've brought each of us through to reach this very morning alive and in your presence. We thank you. We reconnect with you. We start again on the journey that you've set before us to do the good works you prepared ahead of time for us to do. We need you. We need you when we remember. We need you when we forget. Help us, Lord. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thanks.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning again, commissioners and staff and friends in the audience. Commissioners, do we have any additions or deletions for today's meeting?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Fletcher, a second by Commissioner Adam. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Aye. We'll start the morning with a proclamation of National Emergency Management Awareness Month, and this will be presented by Commissioner Joe Ehrman. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, everybody, today. This is a proclamation that I'm proud to read and present because, as we all know, it's emergency management time, a year. We don't know what Mother Nature is going to throw at us or what else might happen, so we have to be ready for it as best we can, and I think we've got some pretty good people here that are doing a pretty good job. We can present this proclamation to them, but I told them they have one job and one job only, and that's to keep the hurricanes and storms away. So we'll see how they do at that. But if Mother Nature has her say so, we'll be ready for it, though. So
I lost mine when I,
She's wanted him to get in.
Sorry.
Just wanted to go.
all right, so
I
I'm
was
proud
just
to read
trying
this
to get some
proclamation.
volume lower.
We have someone on
Apparently
Zoom.
it can't be
He
long.
said to go ahead and cut the chain if they needed to.
We have somebody,
Put another
no,
one on.
we're all hearing it.
I hear that.
We have a sound anomaly.
Okay, sounds like we're ready. Okay. This is a proclamation, National Emergency Management Awareness Month for August 2026. Whereas the safety, security, and resilience of the residents, businesses, and visitors of Indian River County depend upon proactive planning, preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery efforts before, during, and after disasters and emergencies. And whereas emergency management is a coordinated effort involving local, state, federal, private sector, nonprofit, volunteer, and community partners working together to protect lives, safeguard property, and ensure the continuity of essential government services. And whereas the Indian River County Department of Emergency Service, in collaboration with public safety agencies, municipal governments, healthcare partners, schools, businesses, volunteer organizations, and countless community stakeholders, works year-round to prepare for hurricanes, severe weather, flooding, wildfires, hazardous materials incidents, public health emergencies, and other natural and human-caused hazards. And whereas emergency management professionals dedicate themselves to educating the public, strengthening community resilience, coordinating emergency response operations, supporting disaster recovery, and fostering partnerships that enable our community to withstand and recover from emergencies more effectively. And whereas preparedness begins with every resident, family, business, and organization taking personal responsibility to develop emergency plans, build disaster supply kits, stay informed through trusted sources such as Alert Indian River, and support neighbors before disaster strikes. And whereas National Emergency Management Awareness Month serves as an opportunity to recognize the dedication of emergency management professionals, first responders, volunteers, nonprofit organizations, and community partners whose commitment helps protect the people of Indian River County every day. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, the month of August as National Emergency Management Awareness Month in Indian River County, and encourages all residents, businesses, and visitors to recognize the importance of emergency preparedness, learn about local hazards, develop emergency plans, assemble disaster supply kits, and work together to build a safer and a more resilient community. Adopted this 18th day of August, 2026, and signed by all 5 county commissioners. So thank you, everyone, for what you do every day, and it's a job that we hope they don't have to carry out, but they have to be ready for it. So again, our sincere thanks to all you do. So,
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Come on up.
Ryan's not going to speak?
Yeah, he's going to speak.
I mean, I'd rather him speak now
Yeah.
than if there is an event.
Ms. Karen, come on up.
Now
Good
we're
morning,
complete.
Honorable Commissioners, and good morning to the Indian River County community. My name is Ryan Lloyd. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Emergency Services and the Emergency Management Chief. Over time, the profession of emergency management continues to evolve and change because the threats to the community continue to evolve and change. And we have to be ahead of those things and on the forefront of trying to be prepared as much as possible. That cannot be done without a solid emergency management team. And just for a second, I'd like to recognize from the top, Mason Kozak, our Emergency Management Coordinator, Rachel Ivy and Aaron Reyes, our planners, Dustin Van Giesen, our Mitigation and Recovery Specialist, and importantly, Director Dave Johnson. I'd like to thank the Honorable Commission, the County Administrator, and all of our stakeholders, including the Director, for the support that you give to our program. And as the Commissioner said, hopefully we don't have to do our jobs. We're constantly planning, but hopefully we don't have to do our jobs on the response and recovery end. But know this, that if we do, we are going to be prepared, and we're going to overcome any obstacle that may face our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, come on up with the team, please.
Good job, yeah. Thank you. Now you don't have to speak for the rest of the year. Good to see you. You had to be cooled down. You give one. Thank you.
All right, bring it in.
Bring it in, get close.
No offense, man.
Thank you, guys. Commissioners, next up is a proclamation that has been rescheduled a time or two. This will be read by Vice Chair Moss, recognizing Dogs for Life and its outstanding service to our community. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recognizing Dogs for Life for its outstanding service to the community. Whereas Dogs for Life, Inc. is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the quality of life for veterans, first responders, individuals with disabilities, and others in need through the training of hearing and service dogs. And whereas, as an accredited member, of Assistant Dogs International, Dogs for Life has become a trusted community resource by providing service dog training, puppy raising, facility dog programs, and support services that foster independence, healing, and hope. And whereas, through partnerships with organizations such as the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, Dogs for Life continues to make a lasting impact by providing certified school resource dogs and facility dogs that offer comfort and support to students, first responders, and those experiencing trauma. And whereas the organization's dedicated staff, volunteers, trainers, puppy raisers, donors, and community partners exemplify compassion, generosity, and an unwavering commitment to improving the lives of others. And whereas Dogs for Life has transformed the lives of countless individuals while strengthening the health, safety, and well-being of Indian River County through the extraordinary bond between people and service dogs. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that we proudly recognize Dogs for Life for its extraordinary service to our community and express our sincere gratitude to its staff, volunteers, and supporters for their dedication to changing lives one service dog at a time. Adopted this 18th day of August, 2026, and signed by all 5 county commissioners. And I'll thank them personally. Unfortunately, they were not able to attend the meeting today to receive. Shelley Ferger, she's the executive director and on the board, or a number of veterans I know are Rick Lewis, Terry Treat, and I believe there are others. So my thanks to all of them. This is a wonderful service to the community, and sorry they couldn't be here with a dog today. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, that brings us to any approval of minutes. We don't have any minutes to approve. Informational items are in your agenda and backup. If anyone would like to discuss any of those, please speak now. Next is a public comment for any agenda-related matters except for public hearings. There'll be a separate, distinct opportunity to speak about public hearings. At this time, if there's any comments from the public, or agenda-related, I should say. All right, Commissioners, next up is consent agenda. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Fletcher and a second by Commissioner Ehrman. Any further discussions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, constitutional officers, and governmental agencies, we do not have any of those present on the agenda today. Next will be the public items. The first public hearing is 11A, is an amended and restated developers agreement between Lawrence Land Holdings LLC and Indian River County, Blue Water Bay. I see Assistant General Counsel Prada here. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Prado, Deputy County Attorney on behalf of Indian River County, Florida. Yes, today you have in front of you, it is an amended and restated developers agreement between the current property owner, Lawrence Land Holdings LLC, and the county. It is for a developer's agreement of that piece of property that has been lying there kind of vacant since, I think, the early 2000s, 2006, 2007, on that corner between 510 and 90th Avenue and 86th Avenue. It's that nice little vacant chunk there if you're familiar with the north side of the county. This project in particular consists of 374 single-family properties is what's being proposed, and it will come in two phases. The first one has 189 properties. The second one contains 185 properties. The developer's agreement does go through a number of different items. It is amended and restated. You'll see that attached to the agenda, there is a 2006 developer's agreement that was entered into when this first came about. That developer's agreement, there has been numerous changes. One of them, I think there was a discovery of who actually owned a canal there off of 510, therefore causing a change to be had as far as one of the public benefits that was to be given. The developer could no longer give a public benefit that was to be given back in that 2006 agreement. So it has since then come back and exchanged. The one public benefit that they have then agreed to have is, I believe, the 86th Avenue intersection light on 510. There to install a full intersection and light and interchange there. All of the stuff is supposed to come from them, and that's laid out here in this developer's agreement. It also lays out a few other extra parcels of right-of-way that they will now be contributing that they previously were not contributing along 510. So there are a few other additional items there that have been added in order to kind of swap off, if you will, for what was lost from the 2006 developers agreement to what there is today. So this item did come back in front of the Board of in front of Planning and Zoning again. And it did get approval again for a preliminary plat, if you will, with all the updates that are in there and all the new requirements based on the changes that have occurred since 2006. I know that staff has received a letter, and I believe if this hasn't been entered into the record, it was asked to be entered into the record from the Indian River Neighborhood Association dated August 16th, 2026. This was received yesterday and had several questions and comments. If the board has questions or comments for myself or for staff on this, we're happy and prepared to answer. I believe I asked staff to be here today, and I see several of them in the back. If you have any questions or comments on this, and I also advise the developer themselves to have a representative present so that they could answer any questions or comments, but I don't see anyone in the audience coming up for this.
Commissioners, do we have any questions or concerns?
Yes, I do. I'd like the questions in the letter to be addressed, and then I have some questions of my own.
Okay. So if you'd like to start with the questions in the letter, ma'am, or would you like to
Yes,
start with your own?
IRNA letter,
Okay.
which I guess we're entering into evidence, if I understood you correctly.
Yes, I will be entering that here at the end. I will hand a copy over to the clerk. I will ask then that the engineering division with transportation come to speak about this, to talk about road improvements with FDOT and timing. I will tell you that when in discussing some of this and going in the back and forth, this was something that I believe there was the developer wanted to have this worked out at a later date and not necessarily outlined in the developer agreement, and so that's why it's not necessarily outlined as thoroughly as it could be, and staff wants it to be more outlined pursuant to an email that I received yesterday afternoon, but I will let them get more into it.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Nick Agliardo. I am the Assistant Public Works Director and County Engineer. To go down some of the items, question number one was largely about the timing of the improvements, and as Ms. Prado mentioned, it could be better identified in a typical developer's agreement. That's something that we are in conversation with Blue Water. They are obligated to certain improvements. The timing, whether it be in phase 1 or phase 2, wasn't specifically delineated, but the traffic impact study does identify that the previous background conditions of both the intersections are failed. And so the improvements are needed, and I think they're going to be doing those improvements, specifically the signalization of 86th. So while not specific to the timing of the phasing and the DA, they are committed to those improvements.
Well, when is it going to be made clear? It's not clear now in the agreement, so when is it going to be made clear?
The traffic impact study identified them as being background conditions, and so typically for items that fail due to background conditions, they're required to be done early on, usually with phase one. That could be identified better in the plans. It could be worked out, or the DA can be amended to add specific language to that point.
I mean, it's important because if I understand it correctly, the public benefit that we're hanging this on, or you're hanging it on, is the traffic light. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
They're going to pay for the traffic light.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's important to know when that is, and also what's the value of it, of that traffic light.
Sure. For item number 2, the proportionate fair share for the 66 improvements, during conversation in the initial developers agreement, there was an amount that was identified for, again, a background condition that had failed. As the new public benefits came about, the signalization of 86 was previously also a background condition that was failed, and so the developer wasn't obligated to do the full signalization. Now they are as a public benefit. And so the 66 proportionate fair share was left out of this agreement.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that either because it's in the backup for the planning and zoning meeting that was held. It mentions cost participation for the intersection improvements at 510 and 66th Avenue, including northbound left turn lane, westbound right turn lane, and I'm sorry, the northbound was dual, northbound dual turn lane, westbound right turn lane, and optimized cycle length. And that whole 66th Avenue, which was discussed by P&Z, I don't see it anywhere in this agreement. It's missing. So the agreement is incomplete, just by that standard alone.
And
I mean, when, you have to add it now. You know, we can't, yeah, it should already be in there. You know, we shouldn't be approving an incomplete developers agreement. We don't want to go back and have to start adding things. And I'm surprised at, specifically at this one, because it was part of what P&Z was presented in April. So even though this goes back 20 years, this was restated in April. So I was surprised that it was missing, and I did look for it, and it's not there. But please continue.
And without the full benefit of that conversation, since the planning and zoning meeting, a portion of that may be just due to the advanced timing of the FDOT projects, but again, certainly something that we can look into. For item number 3, the TMDL and the BMAP was mentioned. Both of those requirements are outside of our jurisdictional requirements. They're handled by the DEP and St. John's, which has issued their ERP. But I will say, specific to the Blue Water Bay project for staff's review, the project itself is providing additional treatment volume above and beyond what the standards require. And so for that item, I don't think it was necessarily something that was missed. I think it's more to do with the timing of the actual application and what the project was, what standards they're being held to based on the timing of that application.
But we could ask for it. We could request it on a voluntary basis.
We can.
letter states.
It's something that if
And
the
would you?
board desires, we could ask. I know Natural Resources, in talking to them, they are very interested in this as a larger conversation to assist with meeting some of their TMDL requirements. So it'd be something that staff would be interested in having a broader conversation of, for sure.
So what would be the time frame for that? Again, that should probably already be here. It should be part of this developers agreement.
For the TMDL conversation with Natural Resources, I know they're in active conversation with their TMDL requirements to help find ways to meet them. Private development are not held to our TMDL standards, so it's two separate things. This, as a private development coming in, wouldn't be required to meet our TMDL requirements. But again, they are exceeding their required treatment volume, and so they're treating the water in excess of what they're required to do otherwise. So they're meeting all of their developmental standards for water quality.
I think we're on 4.
Item 4.
And that was missing from our packet. That's actually both of them.
So
And we were later provided with the utilities remediation plan, which I guess will be entered into evidence. It doesn't say who prepared this. There's no ID on it, the way I received it, and who's paying for this? I mean, evidently, as a layperson, it appears that a lot of what was installed 20 years ago is no longer usable. Sir?
if I may just briefly, I want to address really quick before we move on to number 4, the question about the funding or the fair share. I did pull up, and the planning and zoning approval is not, it wasn't attached as Exhibit B, it was added separately, but it was included with the agenda items. So if you look there, that's the dated March 30th. That was from the planning and zoning that took place on April 9th. And just looking back, all of the recommendations that were there, it says on the last page, on page 5, the staff recommendations of what's required. And the recommendations from the planning and zoning from this newly updated one did not require a fair share cost or monetary contributions. Those recommendations says that 1, prior to the issuance of the land development permit for phases 1 and 2, the applicant shall dedicate 15 feet of right-of-way along 86th Avenue to the project's entrance and dedicate the right-of-way along County Road 510 as depicted on the preliminary plat. Obtain Board of County Commission approval of a developer's agreement that will detail the timing and sequence of all traffic and roadway improvements as outlined within Section 9 of this report. And obtain planning staff approval on the final landscape plan and street lighting plan. D, obtain environmental planning staff approval of the final tree protection and mitigation plan. Number 2, prior to issuance of the certificate of completion for any project phase, the applicant shall construct required improvements such as traffic, roadway, sidewalks, and landscape buffers that are tied to the specific phase or phases, or otherwise guarantee completion of the improvements provided for in the LDRs. Improvements in respect to sequencing and timing may be detailed by the developer's agreement or by the LDP. Number 3, internal sidewalks shall be constructed along the frontage of common areas and individual lots in accordance with Section 913.09, sub 5B2 of the county LDRs. And number 4, prior or via the final plat, the developer shall establish a restriction acceptable to the county attorney on all 55-foot wide lots restricting homes to 1 story. So this was the new one that was adopted in April. These are the new restrictions and new requirements for this last one. So anything that was in 2006 was amended. And so I believe the number for the fair share came from the 2006 agreement. It's not what was required from planning and zoning under this last reiteration. I wanted to point that out because I know the IRNA letter pointed that out and said that it's missing this, but this has already gone to planning and zoning and the requirements they required were this. So I just wanted to let you know that distinction. And the comment on and to answer number 4 where it said Exhibit B wasn't provided, it wasn't provided necessarily as the exhibit, but this is the Exhibit B. It was provided as an attachment to the agenda item. I will let Sean Leesky speak as to the utilities matter for number 4.
Thank you for that. I'll just say, I watched the video of that planning and zoning meeting
Yes,
in
ma'am.
its entirety, and they were told that the buck stops here, that we have to catch this stuff. So we can't rely on them. So if you're quoting that into the record as being a final version of their wishes or statements, it's not, because they were told that we are going to take care of it. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Thank you.
Agreed,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Leesky.
Thank you.
Bring it up. Susan, before you move on, Susan, so at the following my meeting with Commissioner Moss, it does state in the staff report for P&Z, based on the approved traffic improvement, traffic impact study. The following improvements are required. It lists them. And the last one to be listed is cost participation based on, in parentheses, proportional fair share for intersection improvements at County Road 510 and 60th Avenue, including the three items that she mentioned: northbound lane, dual turn lane, westbound right turn lane, optimized cycle length. And then the next sentence says, all of the above improvements will be detailed in the developer's agreement, which will include the timing for completion of such improvement. I think that's what was presented to the board, the P&Z board, in the form of the staff report.
Yes, so my apologies, I guess my misunderstanding was, that's my misunderstanding then, because in the IRNA letter, I believe that they put a specific amount, and that's what I was trying to address, was that there was not necessarily a specific amount. And I was just reading what the recommendations were from planning and zoning.
Thank you.
Mr. Liskey, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Sean Leesky, Director of Department of Utility Services. Just in response to the question, number 2, it actually does ask about off-site improvements. There are no off-site improvements for water or sewer. They will be connecting actually directly to water and sewer lines that are along 510. As FDOT comes and improves that roadway, we are having to move those lines. Hopefully timing of that will work out where they won't have to connect the existing lines, but to the moved lines, but they will be connecting directly to there. As far as the remediation plan, it was submitted by the developers for Blue Water Bay, and you are correct. The infrastructure is 20 years old. The majority of that is not in good shape. Will need to be replaced. As you can kind of see, the entire water system is going to need to be replaced. The sewer system, there are some things that may be able to be maintained. They talk about manholes might be able to be reused. However, some of those may need to be dropped or some additional things done to them. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done on the system, including replacing the majority of the sewer system as well. So we're holding to that, and they're going to have to meet the requirements of the remediation plan. And it's all on there. They're the ones responsible for that. We're not going to be responsible for any of that.
Okay, so in terms of payment, they pay?
Developers paying for that, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff?
I think we're up to number 5 on this.
Number 5.
On the IRNA letter?
So this one is that requires security and county consent to assignment. The state stormwater permit for this project lists D.R. Horton as applicant, while the party bound by this agreement is Lawrence Land Holdings. I can't speak as far as the permits for the stormwater. What I can speak to is as far as the developer's agreement. We cannot enter into a developer's agreement with someone that doesn't necessarily own the property. So currently Lawrence Land Holdings is the current property owner, so that's why we're entering it into them. And with them, it's understood, and this is common practice in the developer's agreements, is usually the property owner enters into it. Once they enter into it and it's sold to a developer, the developer steps into the shoes of the property owner for whatever was agreed to in that developer's agreement. So it's all of their assigns, heirs, and all the people that come after an interest. So once D.R. Horton actually purchases that property, they automatically step into the shoes of the then property owner. So, but I cannot speak as far as the permits for the St. John's. I apologize. I don't know how that works. Because I know, for example, for our permitting, someone else who's not the property owner can apply for a permit if they're the authorized agent. But it looks like John may have, no, you don't, sorry.
No, after you're done with this, I want to go back to
I don't have
something
anything
else.
further on that one.
Yeah. Have you seen the conditional concurrency certificate? It stated that there is one in the developer's agreement. I requested a copy and did not receive a copy. So do you have that, or have you seen that?
I will reserve to staff. I have not seen that particular item.
I mean, I think that should be entered into evidence also. I don't know. I requested it and did not receive it. And I think that's especially important because this is a 20-year-old project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moss. I do apologize. I left a little bit early yesterday. I didn't see your second follow-up. The traffic study, that you were provided with the fully approved traffic study, and the certificate mirrors what the traffic study has already shown, but I can get it to you.
So there is no certificate at the current time?
No,
A piece of paper.
Yes, I could give you a piece of paper.
Is there a
that-
piece of
yes,
paper?
yeah,
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yes.
Or the piece of paper, because they're not one and the same. The traffic study is not the concurrency.
Right, there is a certificate that's issued by the county as well,
I mean,
correct.
because concurrency should be addressing far more than traffic.
Right. That's
So
what
they're
the
not,
certificate-
you know, they're not one and the same.
Thank you.
I'll ask too, and thank you for that. With regard to public benefit, that P and Z meeting, the video that I watched, they were saying that the fire station that is nearby, the road behind that fire station, is something that we should ask for as a public benefit. That was stated. You were there, and there was a discussion of it. So I'm thinking that perhaps that should be added to this. Whereas right now, if I understand it correctly, the public benefit and this whole thing, you know, I mean, it's incomplete at this point, in my opinion, and I think that we've shown that in the last few minutes. But in addition to that, I mean, the single most important thing that defines this is the public benefit. And so far, we have a traffic light. And is there anything else? I mean, I think that this road behind the fire station might be an additional, you know, appropriate request.
Wasn't the pedestrian crossing an additional improvement made for the students to Treasure Coast Elementary?
And again, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moss, John, yes, it was, but also there were several other public benefits that have already been completed and are outlined in the staff report. Primarily, quite a bit of right-of-way that has already been dedicated, a huge amount of right-of-way for that curve. There's also some other items that have been completed, so it's not the only item. This is the only item that changed. The mentioning of the unpaved road west of the fire station property was, in my opinion, coincidental. The fire station had just been reviewed and approved at the meeting immediately prior, so it was in the P&Z's mind. But I don't think at that point the developer or staff were looking to renegotiate a deal that had already been approved at that point. So this developers agreement is implementing what's been approved. I don't think now's not the time to go for another bite at the apple.
Well, it's incomplete as it stands.
Well, the tweaks that can
At
be
this
made.
current time, at this moment in time, it's incomplete. So I don't see any problem with any additions.
I'll defer to council, but I don't think we can just last minute add on public benefits.
Mr. Administrator.
So Ryan and Susan, would it be appropriate to include what was stated in the staff report and that was in the original DA, maybe not having the exact amount, but that they're going to provide their proportional fair share of participation for the improvements at 510 and 66th Avenue?
Yeah, I believe
And
that
that
should
would
be
be under
added.
Section 8 of the amended
Correct.
and restated development agreement.
Yes,
So
the
that's
problem
the
with,
only thing that I see where,
I agree. The problem with adding specific numbers is that
what was
is the-
389,000 back then is not today.
Correct. So if anything, we want to pin down percentages, but not hard numbers. And then the last thing I'll say as far as timing, we can't really obligate a developer to it's on their time. So if we say this needs to be done in 2 years, well, they may not break ground in 2 years. They might break ground in 6 months, but we can't obligate a developer to pull the trigger, so to speak.
Well, the developer's agreement, it expires in 7 years, right? Is
Correct.
that correct? Okay.
The important timing factor is that
They don't have another 20 years.
They do not.
No matter how
But-
you look at it.
Right. The timing issue that's important is that they complete the improvements that they're required to complete at the earliest phase possible. So in this case, it would be prior to CFC for phase 1. So they have to take on the full signalization of the intersection early on in the process and not wait or defer. So that's the sticking point here that's important. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I mean, staff's recommendation would be the same with the exception of adding a provision to, because remember, there's 2 hearings for this, is to add a provision in Section 8 of the road improvements that recognizes the original commitment for their proportional fair share contribution to County Road 510 and 66th Avenue intersection.
Gotcha. So in other words, since this is the first hearing, we would expect some of these things discussed to be cleaned up before the second hearing.
Correct.
Any questions of the staff commissioners?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The year 2006 was mentioned. I do remember it. Do remember the project. It's a good project. And Platt worked. They had to fight for it. They had to prove themselves. And since 2006, we have a very active school just across the street. And we also have, it's no longer there, but I think Laura Laporte was harboring cattle adjacent. And then that was a concern. That doesn't exist, but the school does exist. The widening of 510, the accommodations, a lot has changed since 2006. Doesn't make it a bad project. It's just we vetted all of the concerns out since those changes and what has gone on with development and population since that time was that taken into consideration. So I would like to ask Nick, I know that you have some concerns. I'd like to hear those concerns. I'd like to hear some of the comments you made are valid. I respect the profession and your input, which is critical. And I don't want it to be treated lightheartedly and say, okay, we'll just bring something back and we'll have them ice it up a little bit, maybe shave a little bit down, and we'll get it right. That's not why we're here today. I understand it's the first hearing, but I'd like you to state your case.
Thank you, Commissioner Flesher. There are a couple of key points that were brought up, and I think they're fair points. The item for proportion fair share into that conversation and the timing of the FDOT improvements, we're continuing to meet with FDOT to go over their timeline. It is very different than the original transfer agreement, and so the timing of the widening of the additional improvements, I think, are a big part of this conversation. For Blue Water Bay to come in an interim condition, it may very well be that the timing doesn't make sense for contributions that FDOT has already committed to fund. We would be happy to sit back with staff and re-review those conversations, but I think those conversations were already had, and I believe those were already reviewed when we looked at this developers agreement and we put together these items. The point of the timing and of the stormwater improvements as well. I think Natural Resources is struggling right now with the amount of funding that's needed to meet the water quality improvements. I think that is a very important conversation. But to hold specific developers accountable, it's two separate conversations. And so I wouldn't think that it would be fair at the last minute to hold one developer accountable with this DA, even though I would love to see conversations continue on the topic so we can meet the water quality requirements that we have. I don't necessarily think it would be appropriate to include it in this DA, though, at this time. So all things considered, I believe the DA has very fairly pointed out the improvements that Blue Water Bay is going to be committing to. In addition to that, I think the timing is a great question, going over the fact that we understand that 66 is a failed roadway in the current and background conditions that's absent any additional development. When somebody sees that, I can understand how it can be alarming. But in conversation with the FDOT projects and the advanced timelines that they've presented, I believe a lot of those items will be addressed. And To your point, Commissioner Moss, it won't be another 20 years before improvements are done. The FDOT commitments alone will take care of these improvements absent Blue Water Bay. The fact that Blue Water Bay is coming in and improving this development ahead of time and doing the signal ahead of time, when they know in a couple more years they can just wait and FDOT will do it, I think shows a big part of commitment on Blue Water Bay's part. So they're coming to the table, they're meeting our expectations, and I think what staff had identified as issues for them to meet, we're always happy to do as the board wishes. But I think the developers agreement very fairly addressed staff concerns.
Nick, thank you for allowing me to put you on the spot and step up to the plate and expound a little bit. Thank you.
Commissioner, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ehrman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What Commissioner Fleischer brought up, what Commissioner Bross has brought up I think is all relevant, and I think you said it. I mean, this was 20 years ago. This might have been one of your first ones you saw.
It was.
That come before
It
you.
was. First
And
project.
and you've seen many since before then. I don't know if it's because it was 20 years ago or whatever it is, but I can read this, and I read it. I've read everything about it. I've read the letter. I've read the developer's agreement. I don't know, maybe it's just a feeling I'm getting in my stomach that everybody's kind of confused about this a little bit, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, and I'm not asking anything, but I think there's some clarification that needs to be made. Do we need to, one of my questions would be, do we need to treat this like it's a brand-new development? Or are we treating this like a development that didn't get built, and now we're doing it again? I mean, things have changed. Like Commissioner Fleischer, there's a lot more people here. That's a busy intersection. It's a busy part of this county with all that stuff in there. I just want to make sure we do this right, and we're not trying to, do surgery on an old wound or something like that. I want to make sure that we're starting new and everybody's happy, the developer's happy, the landowner's happy, we're happy. I don't feel the happiness right now for some reason. I don't know how else to put it. But, well, I just feel a little bit uneasy about this right now, and I don't know if Mr. Administrator, if we can, I would vote on this today to move it to the second one, but I want some stuff cleared out and cleaned out, and I want it easier to understand what we're doing here by the time we go to the second hearing. Like I said, I'm not getting that warm, fuzzy feeling about this whole thing right now. And I think we need some clarification as to where this is going. I think Commissioner Moss asked some valid questions and comments. The IRNA asked some valid questions and comments. I understand that staff's done a lot of these developer agreements without question. This is just a different bird because it's something that was 20 years ago. We're trying to reinvent the wheel? I mean, we need to, again, I'll say it again, that area up there where this is a busy area of the county. And we need to make sure the traffic flows right. We need to work with DOT. We need to get everything together. Sean brought up the utilities and all that sort of stuff. Things have changed. BMAP didn't exist 20 years ago on stormwater. It exists now. We need to make sure those things are correct. So I'll be happy to vote for it today, but just to move it forward so we can get some answers on this. But before the next public hearing, I'd like to have a little more clarification and and kind of limit the confusion that I think everybody's struggling with a little bit.
Well, Commissioner Ehrman, since this is a public hearing, I will now open up the public hearing for anyone in the audience or online that would like to comment on the Blue Water Bay project. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. Josh Miller, 12955 81st Street, Fellsmere, Florida. Good to see you, Darrell. It's been a while. I didn't come here to talk about this. Please ignore the name on my shirt. It's my work shirt. I'm going to work from here. Thank you, Ms. Moss, for this. Thank you for the clarity on your analyzing this development. It's an eyesore. I drive by it all the time. I'm not a development fan, but I'm glad that something's going to be done with that. And I'm glad you're looking at the traffic because that's pretty much the biggest impact to us in that live out that way. So I just want to give kudos for you guys really diving into this. When I first started hearing that planning and zoning just kind of passed it to you guys, I was like, oh no. But I appreciate that. So it's a kudos for you for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, members of the commission. Mike Dula with D.R. Horton, representing the applicant and the landowner for this project. I appreciate all of staff's back and forth here and the history on this project. This project does have a long and storied history, and we're trying to make it right and actually get this to the finish line here. I will note, I think a lot of the clarification is definitely needed on the offsite improvements and what has been negotiated. Again, the original big public benefit was supposed to be a connection over the canal. Now that the Corrigan family owns that and we've moved away from that, the signalization and the full cost of the signalization being borne up by the developer is the biggest public benefit. But Blue Water Bay has also already donated and continues to donate additional right-of-way for the future County Road 510 improvements, as well as right-of-way on 86 for connections up to the project entrance. Regarding timing and security for the improvements, we're committed to bonding all the offsite improvements that are required. Day one, we'll post a bond so that we can ensure that the signalization and the improvements up to the project's entrance are constructed, no matter if the project is here or goes away. Again, we're fully committed to pushing it forward, but regardless, that bond will be in place so we can ensure the improvements are made at this time. We also have our traffic consultant here who performed the traffic study. Back on, we provided an analysis actually comparing the project's required transportation impact fees to what we would look at for proportionate fair share down the road at that intersection, which is the portion we're talking about for that PFS, which was previously just under 400,000. This development with the current unit count and current Indian River County impact fees would be in excess of $2 million of transportation impact fees. And from our analysis that was previously provided to county staff, that far exceeds, or it exceeds, the proportionate fair share that would be required at that intersection. And that's what was intended to cover that. We're happy to place, again, timing requirements on the construction of that signal because I know that's important. We're also going through both DOT permitting and county permitting for the signalization and the improvements at the school for crosswalks to ensure that a safe condition is created. Again, I know there's been a lot of back and forth and there's a lot of project history and we want to do this right. So we're happy to provide additional clarity in the DA. The only other item I did want to touch on is the stormwater, because I know that's a big concern. This project was substantially constructed regarding stormwater back when it ceased to happen a while ago. So the ponds, the stormwater pipes are all actually in operation today. We went back to St. John's and re-permitted it to ensure that we were up to current standards, that current operation and maintenance entities would be there to handle any potential shortfalls. But Blue Water Bay does also accept stormwater runoff from County Road 510 and handles above and beyond its minimum stormwater standards. So again, I'm happy to answer any other questions or items of clarification, and our traffic consultant is here who can provide more background on the TIA and the proportionate fair share. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I have the traffic impact analysis, which is dated April 17th, 2025. And on page, this might be too detailed right now, but I'd like it considered, and it can be answered, prior to the next meeting to us by email. But on page 6, this is the roadway segment analysis, 3.4. It says 80% of the directional capacity will be exceeded due to background conditions without the addition of project trips. Therefore, in accordance with Florida Statute 163.3180, the project is not responsible for mitigating the deficiencies caused by background conditions. Then, and I've never seen this before, I looked at the first 20 pages or so of the traffic study, but it's, someone wrote in red on this. It says, I'll read what it says, and then I'll read the correction that someone made. And this is 4.3 roadway segment analysis. The build-out peak hour directional LOS level of service for the study area roadway segments are presented table 4.6. As indicated in the table, all roadway segments are anticipated to operate below 80% of the directional capacity. Then it's redlined by somebody, I don't know whom, there are no initials here. It says corrected, makes statement accurate, whatever that means. And then on another page, page 18, 4.4, site access review. I'm not going to read the whole thing, it's too lengthy. But again, there's this redlining, and it says, I can't read it, I'm sorry. Needs something, so if you can look at that. Option 1, again, this is the red line, I'm quoting, was relabeled. Option 2 was relabeled, that's redlined. And then there's another red line, changed from something within a school zone. So there's a lot, I don't know why these things were redlined, and, you know, that's, traffic's such a big part of this, because that traffic signal, I guess, you know, the right-of-way is okay, but the traffic signal truly is a public benefit. You know, I don't know that the public will notice whether they have a right-of-way or not, but they'll notice a traffic signal. So with this, you know, with this redlining, are you the redliner?
No, I'm not
okay.
sure exactly where the red lines came from.
Good
Okay.
morning.
I believe it was probably
Excuse
something
me.
in staff.
Excuse me, sir. Name and address. for
Oh,
the
this
record.
is Josh Black, Alaska Transportation Group,
Thank you.
1049 Ebro Boulevard, Melbourne, Florida. So basically, I'm not sure where the red lines came from. I think that was staff markups. You know, there was a lot of versions of the study that we produced and negotiations with staff. Staff was great to work with, and, you know, they held us to a very high standard, as they do all the developments. And so that could be a version that was uploaded from, you know, the in-between reviews and things like that, but I'll be happy to provide clarification for all of those, given the opportunity to look through those notes, and I can answer those questions.
Okay, good, because this was provided to me yesterday as the final version, so if it's not the final version, then I'd like to see the final version.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, and I could make sure that you get the
Okay.
approved version. I believe we have one that's stamped from Indian River County that is approved. And while I'm up here.
This is stamped, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure if that,
I don't know.
if that was the one with markups just for their
Okay.
notes. However, one of the questions that you had posed earlier, since I'm up here, is the value of the traffic signal. Right now, that's at 1.2 to 1.4 million, depending on once we finally get to construction. So it's a fairly significant improvement.
Good. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other public comments? Please come forward. Hearing none, I will now close the public comment section. Commissioners, what's your flavor?
If I may briefly, before the board takes a vote, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to clarify, since the deadline for the next hearing is tomorrow at noon, I was just speaking with staff, we'd request to move this instead of being the September 1 meeting, at least to the September 15th meeting, so staff can go back and make those changes and have this back to the board for the September 15th meeting. So if that's amenable to the board, so we can make those changes.
Commissioner, I'm hearing that the second hearing of this topic would be essentially in a month from now. Would that give everyone an opportunity to work out the bugs and clear things out? I see that Mr. Administrator nodding his head, and I see Senior Commissioner Flesher nodding his head. Commissioners, to move this forward, what's your pleasure?
Senior.
Senior.
Commissioner Adams.
Senior.
In order to move it forward.
Mr. Chair, move.
Second, I'll second, because he's,
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, a second by Commissioner
The stairs did it.
Urban. Any further discussion?
senior.
Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, and the motion carries.
Nay, no.
We have a 4-1 with Commissioner Moss dissenting. Our next up is public hearing is an ordinance amending Indian River County Code Chapter 106 presented by General Counsel. As a housekeeping matter, after this hearing, we will take a recess and a brief recess and resume back. Good morning, Ms. Prado.
Thank you. Good morning again, Commissioner. Susan Pardo, Deputy County Attorney on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. Yes, this morning I bring to you, it is a proposed amendment to an ordinance for Chapter 106. And so back in 2020, the board had adopted Chapter 106. This is for disposition of real property and to adopt some procedures in our actual code. So it's a relatively new provision. Since that has gone into place, the county has gone through a few changes. You know, going through a process that's something that's new, you kind of work out the bugs, if you will, or the kinks that are still there. So with that, one of the kinks that we had found was that the way it was written, we were required to use a real estate broker or a real estate person. The costs were coming to be pretty exorbitant. I think the amounts were something around 6% of whatever the fees were, and those costs can get very large considering and depending on the different costs of what the property is. So, and in doing that, we discussed, and we have also, the county attorney's office has now also transitioned and gotten the land acquisition specialist position. And that position is, not only is it funded and to do right-of-way acquisition, but it's also part of her job is to help maintain the leases and to help maintain and sometimes sell and or purchase property on behalf of the county. So between herself, staff, and the attorneys in our office, we believe we can negotiate some of these items, in particular if it's something, for example, a lease where we already have a tenant. There's not necessarily a need to go out and get a real estate agent or a real estate broker or someone involved and pay a 6% fee for something when the tenant wants to just go ahead and stay, and we can renegotiate that lease and enter into it and save the county those taxpayer dollars. So this change essentially makes it so staff can also do some of these negotiations on some of these sales. And it still allows for us to be able to use a real estate broker or a person on items where perhaps we are actually listing it. We would still want to do that. But if there's someone that approaches us, or if it's someone that's currently in a property and has a lease, for example, and they want to purchase now, this gives the opportunity for staff to do that negotiation and save those extra taxpayer dollars. And that's essentially the change in this particular section. So what's being changed is the entire chapter. It's 106.01. You'll see the attached ordinance. It is there, and the added sections are underlined. Any changed sections have been stricken. It also changes and adds a few different language into it. It talks about also unbuildable and currently not in use for county purpose. Because previously it would only say surplus. What we mean by unbuildable is, for example, if the county for some reason comes across a portion of property that's too small and you can't build on it, perhaps a neighbor wants it, we can just negotiate with the neighbor, and we don't have to have that liability or that parcel anymore. Currently not in use is, for example, a piece of property that the county owns, but perhaps we're saving it for expansion of utilities or expansion of something, but it's not necessarily needed at this current moment. So if someone wants to lease the property or use the property in the interim, it's not sitting there just vacant, and it's being put to good use where the county can receive some sort of income or some sort of public benefit, if you will, from that. So those are the changes that are being proposed in this particular code update for the ordinance. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any questions? This is clearly cleanup language that ultimately will save us money. As a public hearing, I will now open this matter to public. Any public comments on this specific item? Hearing none, seeing none, I will close the public comment. Commissioners, what's your flavor?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm happy to see us coming forward with some smart changes that'll make things more efficient in our processes, so I welcome this and would move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Adams and a second by Commissioner Fletcher. Any further discussion on this matter?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. The motion carries 5-0. The
Thank
time
you.
now is 10:04. We will be in recess until 10:15. day. Commissioners, the next matter before us is the county attorney matters. This is consideration of a sale agreement for the purchase of the plus or minus 38.9 acres of land located at Blue Cypress Lake Road site through the Environmental Land Acquisition Bond, otherwise known as the ELAP. I see Mr. Hicks. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. As Chairman said, we are here for an ELAP property. It is Blue Cypress Lake Ranch, Inc., and it's out at Blue Cypress Lake, as it says. It's a very descriptive name. And the purchase price is $380,000. That falls within the scope of the two appraisals. It was a negotiated price. This was a Tier 1 property based upon ELAP's recommendations. And once they make that and the board approved negotiations, we entered negotiations and were able to reach a price that was within the appraisals. As you can see in the board item, it is 100% submerged land. It is surrounded by conservation easements and already owned land by other conservation entities. And then we have adjoining land, and Univers County does next on the north side of it. So I leave it open to the public and for the board to consider and make a decision on whether this is a purchase that ELAP should be making.
Commissioners, I think Commissioner Ehrman is our ELAP representative. Commissioner
Thank you,
Ehrman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elam.
Tier 1.
Mr. Elam.
Commissioners, on this, I have some concerns on this property. First of all, it's really not accessible in any way other than through Blue Cypress Lake, pretty much, if you look at the map on this. I question if it's truly a Tier 1 property. The committee went by the metrics that they were given, and it did pass muster, but personally, I would question its Tier 1 status. It's a beautiful area, partially submerged, underwater, of course, things like that. But it's right on the lake. I don't see how it can ever be developed other than if you maybe put a stilt house on it, but the only way you could probably access it is you'd have to access it by boat from the lake. I just don't see a whole lot of public benefit on this. I would recommend not to purchase it, but I'm okay if we want to take a look at and bring it back at a later date as a conservation easement, because normally those are cheaper. The price is a little less on something like that. That would be my recommendation to not purchase it at this time. I mean, I'm okay if it comes back at a later date or something, but I just think right now, I would like our staff, Beth, Wendy, and their folks to really be concentrating on working for outside funding to replace some of the money with this. And this really doesn't. I don't think it moves the needle forward other than it is conservation land, other than it is, protected land that we could buy. But a conservation easement might be another option, and I'd like staff to investigate that and then come back, at a later date and bring it and tell the ELAP board and come back at a later date should we wish. That would be my concern. So actually on this today, I would tell you I would vote no on this.
Well,
Mr.
thank
Chair?
you. Yes, ma'am.
I agree wholeheartedly. And as a matter of public record, this is from the real estate appraisal report conducted by Tuttle, Armfield, and Wagner. And it does say, under recreation and education opportunities, that, and this is a direct quote, given the number of wetlands on site, the potential for development is very low. So I agree with you 100%. I don't feel that wasn't comfortable with it. I don't feel we're really protecting anything by buying it. It's my understanding that an easement is usually less expensive, and if that's warranted, I'm not even sure that that's warranted, but if it is, I would consider that. But yeah, I'm a hard no on this, where it stands.
And if I could just correct something I said, just to be clear, I heard everything the commissioner said. I said 100% submerged, and I meant 100% wetlands partially submerged, and so I just want to be that clear. It is 100% wetlands, but it's not 100% submerged, so I just want to be clear on that.
For the most part, it's underwater.
Yes.
We can say
Technically,
that, is that safe?
Yes.
Commissioners, I see Director
Chair.
Beth Pout.
I just want to say that I can echo the captain's feelings and sentiments. You know, today, we referred to 20 years ago. It was just short of that when we had made a major land conservation decision. And I had asked the applicant, it was sizable. It was not $300,000+, it was over $12 million. And I asked the applicant, well, what are you doing today? Because tomorrow we make a decision. What are you doing today with the property that you intend on doing? And he explained what he was doing. I said, regardless of the outcome, what will you be doing after the decision, other than going to the bank? And he said, I'll be doing the same thing. You know, the intent of conservation using the public trust and public funding, which they voted on, is to ensure that we protect the land and preserve this great land for future generations. And if there was an applicant before us, I would ask those same questions. And with the property, we can agree or disagree that it's about 75%. You have to remove some water to see the land. There's not much future for the land. Perhaps maybe it completes an additional part of a puzzle for conservation, but it most certainly, using taxpayer dollars from the bond, does not cure anything, does not preserve anything, and does not save anything that I can envision unless I can be corrected. I believe that it's going to be underwater, and as far as development with a stilt, that's a very large undertaking. That I don't, I mean, you have to look at sewerage, permitting, water, even though it's on water. There's a lot of factors involved, plus utilities, to get a house in the middle of a waterborne area up on stilts and operating. And then there's transportation to it as well. So I don't think that we're looking at protecting in the spirit of what the bond is intended for, what the voters voted for, and what we have to look at for the future generations of Indian River County. Oh,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other commissioner comments? See Director Beth Powell, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Beth Powell, Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Director. Some of you may know from the Environmental Land Acquisition Panel discussion, particularly on this item, there was some conversation around how this property ranked, and it ranked very high. However, a lot of the members, I think, reflected back their opinions that are consistent with yours as well, which is that they doubted the developability of this property and the long-term conservation value in terms of the county's direct acquisition was really not there. There was a lengthy conversation around how the property ranked, and it was determined that this was kind of an outlier in terms of how the ranking and scoring was, and the ELAP felt like it wasn't a situation where the scoring or ranking was really at fault. This one just happened to be a situation where it ranked high, but the developability and the threat posed was very low. So that conversation, I think, mirrors what your concerns and your thoughts are today. And I think that the property could certainly be looked at from a standpoint of possibly an easement, which might be a little bit better value for the county in terms of the long-term management and maintenance, while also still preserving the conservation value. But the way that our process works right now, if it's nominated as a fee simple purchase, we move through that process and we don't necessarily evaluate a less than fee simple acquisition process. And the other part to consider is as we look for grant funding, et cetera, this property is not located next to the Middleton Fish Camp, which is a publicly owned boat ramp and area. It's dissected basically by the neighborhood to the north. And that certainly would pose some challenges and problems when we try to compete with grant funding for the acquisition, because most of the time the state funding requires that there's some level of public access. So you would have a public access to the north at Blue Cypress or Middleton Fish Camp, and then you would have to create yet another public access in the property for it to score and rank really highly and compete with other conservation acquisition parcels. For that reason, I think staff is in agreement with the recommendations that I'm hearing today. And at some point in time, if the owner is interested in a less than fee simple purchase, we could certainly take that through the ELAP process again and or bring it back to you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Director. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to not purchase this property with ELAP dollars.
We have a motion. I'll second. Senior Commissioner Fletcher has seconded that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Ms. Powell. Mr. Hicks. Commissioners, that moves us to consideration 14B of a lease agreement for the 5.84 acres Martin Luther King Jr. Park, the site for the Gifford Cultural Center of Museum. This will be presented by General Counsel Schuler. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. And before you, you have consideration of this lease agreement for the entire parcel of the Martin Luther King Jr. Park site for the Gifford Cultural Center and Museum. This project has been before the board twice before. Once in 2021, where the board passed a resolution in support of the project, and more recently in March of 2026, where the nonprofit who has kind of spearheaded this project came and gave the board a virtual presentation that visually depicted the project. But as I stated, the nonprofit is seeking to lease the entire site of the current Martin Luther King Park to build a cultural center and museum. In addition, to constructing this, they propose to preserve the historic church on the site, and I think kind of probably move the walking trail more towards the perimeter of the property, the walking trail that exists on the site now. The nonprofit has had a pre-application meeting with planning staff, and I have included those materials in this board packet for your viewing. But basically, as I said, it would be a 99-year lease. It would be $1 a year that we would be leasing it to them. And before you, I have in here for your consideration the lease agreement and also a resolution that's required by Florida statute in order to enter into this lease with a nonprofit for a nominal amount. Just very briefly, I'll give you kind of an overview of the history of the site. The Board of County Commissioners began efforts to take ownership of this site in 1994. It was an abandoned cemetery, and so they kind of went under this, they began this quiet title process to try to take ownership of it and care for it. In 1994, the historic Macedonia Church was moved to the site, and in 2002, the title was vested in the county. In 2001, the hospital district leased a portion of what was the bigger site for the construction of the Gifford Health Center, and that portion was carved off And now we have the remaining 5.86 acres, and in 2008, a walking trail was constructed on the remaining 5.84 acres that I've mentioned. Before I kind of get into the meat of the lease agreement, I did want to express my appreciation to Peggy Lyons, who negotiated this with me. I thought, even though we did not reach agreement on every item, and I'm going to go into detail on that, she was really professional and a pleasure to work with. So as far as the lease agreement itself, kind of the major points that are before you for consideration would be that 99-year lease at the $1 a year. It would limit the use of the property to a cultural resource center and ensure the preservation of the historic church. I did add some language that would require the nonprofit who's spearheading this to provide proof of available funds in a form and substance acceptable to the county before it issues a notice to proceed or executes a construction contract. We want to make sure that the money's in the bank so that if things did not pan out for this construction, we wouldn't be left with something that's half done on the site that we own. It would give the nonprofit 3 years from lease commencement to obtain site approval for the project and 7 years for substantial construction completion. There's a couple things that might toll that, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and of course that they would have to provide insurance. The main areas where I was not able to reach agreement with Ms. Lyons and the nonprofit went to more the maintenance and repairs of the site, because the group is proposing to lease the entire site. I basically, in this lease before you, would assign all the duty to the tenant to maintain and operate the property. But the nonprofit has proposed alternative language, which I've included in my staff report out of consideration to them, so that you can see that they are asking the county to continue to maintain certain improvements that they would keep open to the public, such as play areas, walkway, landscaping, lawn, driveways, parking areas, stand-alone public restrooms, green spaces, the public walking trail, and playground equipment. So I understand that this is a policy decision of the board, but I would caution the board into entering into a 99-year binding maintenance obligation, especially in uncertain times for our economic, depending on what happens in November. So we agreed to disagree on that, and as currently before you, this would assign that entire responsibility to the nonprofit, and I think that mixing our operations would open up liability to you that you need to carefully consider. The other area that we were not able to reach agreement on is in regards to the historic cemetery on the site. The whole purpose for the county originally obtaining title to that property was to try to take care of what was an abandoned cemetery, and there is a conflict among various parties as to whether human remains are still located in this historic cemetery. It is on, I believe, the Historic Black Cemetery register with the state. So as to whether, in the lease itself, the nonprofit, I think everybody acknowledges that there may be human remains still on the site, and I agree with the nonprofit that the county bears legal responsibility for that. Back when the county took ownership of this property in 1994, it sent a letter to the state and advertised its intent to take over control of the abandoned cemetery, and I do think that carries a lot of legal responsibility. As I stated, there's a conflict of opinion as to whether human remains are on it, but there was most recently in 2013 ground penetrating radar study that was conducted as part of an environmental site assessment for the development of the Gifford Health Clinic. And phase 2 of that assessment concluded that there was evidence of grave sites, visual observation of headstones, and the presence of subsurface features that could indicate the presence of human remains. And there was a map that accompanied that. I know that was sent to you, commissioners, by the health department, that assessed low, medium, and high probability grave sites. The nonprofit has taken the position that those results are ambiguous because there has been debris historically dumped on the property. Again, I don't think anybody can dispute that there may be human remains on the site. Under the lease agreement, I think that the county would, if remains were found, I think the county would have the legal responsibility to make sure that all local and state laws were followed with regards to how those were handled, but I have assigned all the costs to the nonprofit for that. But again, I think there's a lot of unknowns there. So that is an area that we were not able to reach agreement on. I will say that the whole issue, I understand that the nonprofit worked out with planning staff a protocol of what would happen in those if human remains are found. I would say to you that I think it's a lot more complex. There's a lot of state statutes at play. I walked the site last week, and I've counted 10, but I think there's 11 headstones out there. And again, I don't know how long it would take, how much it would cost, if remains were found, where they would be put. I do think that this is an issue that the board needs to carefully consider. So I am happy to answer any questions about the proposed lease agreement, but at this time, I don't know how the board would like to proceed.
Well, thank you very much. Commissioners, before us today is a lease. From what I've heard in the last 7 minutes, seems to be a lot of conflicts in the proposed lease already. So I don't know how we can anticipate agreeing and signing a lease if there's obvious conflict between council and the nonprofit. There was also a comment made, I think, that said, make sure they have the money in the bank. We understand that. But probably more important, a conflict of opinion, whether there's bodies there or not. In my mind, there should be a conflict of opinion. We should know yes or no. We're not based on opinions here. Those are just my initial thoughts, commissioners.
Yeah, so I would tend to agree. If we have the legal responsibility as owners of a cemetery, which statutorily we do, to do certain things and to behave in certain ways, then the bottom line is we need to know, for lack of a better term, where people may be buried. And I think we need to know that more recently than 2013. That's a long span of time. So in noodling through this problem or this project, I did call the Florida Division of Historical Resources, and specifically they have a division of historic cemeteries. This cemetery is on the list of historic cemeteries. And as I was talking to the state, you know, one of the things that they talked about was, and I think Jennifer alluded to it, there are headstones there, but there's a lot of people and families that have loved ones buried there that may not have been able to afford a headstone at the time. So found objects were used to mark graves, or concrete, or shells and that kind of thing that would degrade over time. So just because there's not a grave marker there does not mean that there's not somebody buried there. Some of them may have been moved, some of them may have not. I personally am not willing to vote on the lease at this time without knowing specifically where the bodies are buried. When I talked to the state, one of the things that they said is this, because this is on the master list of historic cemeteries, and because it's also listed as a historic African-American cemetery, it could avail itself of certain grants that they provide. I think some of them are up to $50,000 for cemetery research, cemetery protection, and other things. But one of the first things that they would require is an updated ground penetrating radar done by what they call an SSOI architect, which is somebody who specializes specifically in cemetery ground penetrating radar. So it is not somebody who's just going to go out with the GPR4 and look for utility lines or something of that nature. They're trained to deal with historical cemeteries specifically. I know there are some companies available in this area because a couple of years ago, the city of Fellsmere considered putting a cell phone tower in their historic Brookside Cemetery. And Commissioner Flesher remembers what happened when the road was put in next to Brookside and there was not a GPR done.
Yep.
And things were dug up and it had to be reinterred and construction was halted, and I think even some of those roads had to be moved. So I am not willing to get us back into that situation. I feel like, and you guys know, I had the same conversation with Oslo Cemetery when we took that back over. We owe some respect to the people that are there. And they are part of our community. They're the history of our community, even if it was over 100 years ago, which I find interesting that we just celebrated our centennial, and here we are talking about a historic cemetery. So I feel like the proper course of action is to engage an updated GPR by somebody specifically trained in cemeteries. If we want to pay for that, I'm fine with that. I would also remind you guys that we had this discussion about the Oslo Cemetery, and the GPR hasn't been conducted there either. And we do have a historic pioneer family. Remember, we limited it to pioneer families who would like to purchase a plot, but we are in a holding pattern because it's a similar situation. We don't know specifically where the bodies are buried, so we can't sell a plot. And it's, and I know these are kind of hard topics to talk about, but that's the logistics of cemeteries and trying to be reverent. So we have, just like this, we kind of have a hand-drawn map of where things are. So I would suggest that we engage with the experts to come in and update the GPR at the Gifford Cemetery, and then also go ahead and do the Oslo Cemetery. And then I feel like we will have a better idea of how to move forward in a respectful fashion to those that might be buried in both locations. And I just want to put it out there that until that is done, I'm a no on this, because I need that information and that clarity to then decide, what that might be from a liability perspective of the county.
Well put, Commissioner Adams, and thank you for the delving into some of the hard opinion facts that are reality. I'm familiar with many of the facts in which you just outlaid. I did have a conversation with council, and we did talk about this advanced technology, which I have had a little experience with, and it is absolutely amazing as to what can be seen with this sonar. There's no vagueness, there's no ambiguity. Without getting into too much detail, you will see detail. And at this point, many years ago, we were confronted with a map, and it was described as, well, this may be a site. This may be. There is some object there. There was also discussion about individuals that had been exhumed and relocated respectfully. But this was all light discussion. This was not concrete, here it is, who it is, and where their families are. Because Council mentioned an abandoned cemetery. I'd like to define that, because to me, you can abandon the earth. You can relinquish the earth. You can lease the earth. But what about the souls? What about the souls that were interred there? Do we have a right to do that? So without the definition, without the exact science of identification, and looking at the overlay and seeing how it would be possibly covering someone's history in the intent of history, it's challenging to the soul. And as being a representative, as being someone who has ridden this, I'm looking at a group of people that I am very familiar with and very supportive of, because this project, the intent of the project is nothing short of a miraculous moment. This is nothing short of ensuring that history is maintained, that the culture is identified and categorized and experienced by future generations. It has tourism tentacles. It has economic development tentacles. It places Gifford on the map. It is an identifier. I'm very proud of the intent of the project and the project itself. We have to separate the controversy and clear out the controversy. And I do agree that we need to clear out all of the opinion respectfully, and at that point, we make the commitment to bring this fine project to a reality. But I don't believe that we should be acting upon, well, that's a thought, well, that's an opinion, I don't know. That's not what the people deserve, that's not what the team deserves, that's not what future generations deserve, because if we do make a decision, and it does unfortunately cover someone's past loved one who was interred, there may be a movement to make a change, and that could be extremely costly to the organization, the nonprofit, to the county, and it is a very involved process, as you have articulated, and Council has also advised us. There is a tremendous commitment that we must have, because at one point, if there are any souls interred, they were once someone's loved one, and regardless of how they were placed there, we need to ensure, I don't even know if there's any living relatives that we can contact, that we would have to do. It's very complicated, but I think the first step would be to properly identify this, as opposed to a map that breeds uncertainty. There might be something there. It appears that there's something. There could be a body. No, that was moved. I don't think it's fair to the commission. I don't think it's fair to the people, nor the very intent of this fine project and the commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate.
We can hold down the chatter in the back, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Adams' research. It's very, very enlightening, and there is that requirement to be respectful. And thank you also for pointing out that the two cemeteries really should be done, Oslo and Gifford. So I have a question for the county administrator. If we have any idea what something like this might cost, since we would be doing both, perhaps, and I'll put it to my colleagues, perhaps the county might be willing to make that expenditure.
Yeah, I don't know how much the costs are for advanced GPR. There's 3 different types. I think
I
we would
believe
have to.
when the city of Fellsmere had it done for Brookside, it was less than $30,000, and
Yeah,
they.
it's like there's a range because it
and they got
depends
a
upon a bunch
grant.
of factors.
Yeah.
We'd have to get an appropriate quote from, kind of put it out there and have firms tell us what their costs would be.
And the state does have a list of kind of
Yes.
providers, so
Okay.
they can provide a lot of resources for that.
Okay.
I mean, we could ask them to get a quote and come back.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be astronomical, but we
And if
should know what it is.
If it's under my spending threshold, if it's the consensus of the board to move forward, I will do that.
I'm in favor of it.
Commissioner Erman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Adams, again, thank you for doing that. I forgot about the deal with Fellsmere years ago. I remember that, and that happened. So this makes good sense. And it makes good sense in the fact that if we didn't do it, and we just assumed there was no remains there, and they started construction, well, obviously, if you do find something, the construction's now delayed. And it's delayed for who knows for how long. You know, it could be till everything is done properly and what needs to be done. The conversations that I've had with different people have, and even people that were out there in 2013 when they did it, that the ground penetration, that, like Commissioner Adams said, the technology has changed. There wasn't anything that was absolutely certain. Probability might have been high, but it wasn't a given. I think the technology now will prove either way what it is, and if we do find something that could be properly taken care of and removed in this project, which is definitely a worthwhile project to not only the area of Gifford, but the whole county can proceed. So with that being said, I think it's something we have to do. I think it makes sense for us to do this, to get this information and all parties are, know what's going on, and everybody's hopefully happy and appreciates the effort that's going to be made to honor and be respectful to whomever may still be there. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I just wanted to add, we're talking about technology and what we should be doing, and I just want to give a comparative. We can go back not 20 years, 30 years ago, when people looked at a sonogram of a new life to be arriving on this earth. That sonogram looked like an Etch-a-Sketch. There was scribbly lines, some fuzziness. If you look at a sonogram today, and that this is how it relates, if you look at a sonogram today, you have to pause and say, can this child speak? It is that advanced. So this, in doing this, this will put all of it to bed. We will know if it's an object or it is someone's loved one from the past. and what we should do going into the future. It is crystal clear that that would be the way to go so that we can bring all parties together, bring the county together, and make this project a reality if it's meant to be.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. I just had a couple questions for General Counsel. This was recognized as a historic cemetery some time ago, that's right?
That is correct.
So if it's recognized as a historical cemetery, are there rules, regulations about what can be done there? And if this project went forward, all right, do we remove it? Do we ask that it be removed as a historical cemetery?
So I think it's noted in the state list of historic sites. What I think would have to happen is that if the project proceeded forward and that we'd just have to follow the statutes on what to do if bodies are found. I don't think the county would be prohibited from moving forward, or the project moving forward, if that's the direction you want to go. I will say it's a lot more complex, to your point, Commissioner Adams, as to whether it's a marked or unmarked grave site. If it's an unmarked grave site, there's a whole long Florida statute that would kick in as to what would have to happen, and the state could take jurisdiction over it, and there could be archaeological surveys. I mean, at the very least, what I'm saying is I don't think that if that's the direction the board wanted to go, that the project couldn't proceed, but it is on the list of historic sites.
Right, I was just thinking that somewhere, sometime, somebody put in a lot of work to have that recognized as a historic cemetery. And the follow-up question, I read in your backup about the hospital district having a lease, or do they own the northern portion?
So now they do. It was carved out, and it was a larger site. It was like 10 acres
So they
originally. They own it, yes.
And that is where the
Gifford Health
clinic.
Center
So
is.
it's a health.
Was that part of do we know if that was part of the historic cemetery when that bifurcation happened? Yes. It was. Okay. All right, so, and finally, I think that we have clearly some lease ambiguity between our staff and whomever. So I don't think we're prepared to sign a lease, if that's the objective today, with some of the things we've heard.
Well, yeah, and I will say that what we agreed to finally, Ms. Lyons and I, were that in these areas, we couldn't reach agreement as to maybe maintenance responsibility or who's responsible for costs. We just agreed to insert a line, and unless changed in future written
Gotcha.
agreement. So I do think could be negotiated at a later date if was the board's pleasure.
Okay. Commissioners, without any questions, we'll hear from the public, since they have been generous with their time to spend the morning with us on a busy Tuesday. Good morning. Name and address for the record.
Good morning. Johnny Mae Perry, 3010 41st Street. First of
Can
all,
you
I
speak
would-
into the microphone, please?
Johnny May, we need, yeah.
Oh,
And maybe we can turn it upstairs a little bit.
First, I would just like to thank Jennifer Schuman, the county commissioner, county attorney, for working with Peggy Lanyon, board attorney, on this matter, the board for your consideration, and for sure our community that came out to support us in this effort. We agree that the matter should be put to rest whether there are or not bodies on the property. Starting this process not only in 2019, but literally 33 years ago, when the then resident Victor Hart and Freddie Warfall and Minister Holmes came before the county commissioners, thanking them for their support, but even having the Macedonia historic church moved to the location of the Martin Luther King Park. The Martin Luther King Park is on the Black Heritage Trail of the state of Florida. We are very proud of that. That whole area is the heart of our community. It is the heart of Gifford, and we wear that heart proudly. There again, I just want to thank you for your support, and we do agree that we would love for this process to be hastily done, of course, and supported and funded by the county to bring it to fruition, to know exactly, because as opposed to rumors, it may be or may not be because headstones are there. Ruth Stainbridge asked me to offer her apologies. She wasn't feeling well and could not attend today, but she have a lot of the history dating back for over 25 years in regard to the historic Duval Cemetery. One correction I have, I know it's a historic cemetery, but it was not a historic African-American cemetery. So I want to go on record with that. And our chairman of the board, Dale Dawson, will make a comment, and I'm going to invite Stan Bowling, and we have Mr. Bruce Burnett here for Peggy Lyon.
Okay, we have somebody at the other podium. Name and address for the record.
Good morning, Tony Brown, 4159 57 Court, Vero Beach, Florida. First, the inference that I'd like to clear up. I've been an advocate for Indian River County, for Gifford, Florida, for over 54 years. I started at the age of 12. I left here for 9 years, came back, and my work speaks for itself. Anyone with more, other than I see in this room, Cat Washington and a couple others, that has more institutional or historical knowledge than me, they can talk. I have no hidden agendas. My agenda has always been Gifford, Gifford, from a little boy. To the inference that I have something else going on is disrespectful and disingenuous. Moving from that, when 2013, the late Freddie Woolfolk and myself were involved when the the Florida Department of Health got the Florida Blue Grant and decided to do that work in that park. Freddie Woolfolk was adamant that that walking trail would do the circumference of that area because of respect for those bodies. My concern from day one is the desecration of that cemetery. For those of you who have listened to me, I told you to Google desecrated black cemeteries in the state of Florida and focus on Clearwater. You have what was brought up where there was a black cemetery told there was no bodies, blah, blah, blah. Elderly black man standing there, bucket goes down, comes up, there's a skull. Bucket goes down, comes up, there's a skeletal. There's a oops moment. But we cannot, as was stated, we cannot afford an oops moment. Our due diligence, and I appreciate you commissioners, in spite of all the rhetoric, to do your due diligence and do what is necessary to validate. I want a museum for Gifford, Florida. I was there with Mr. Fred Player and others. And if Ms. Perry would remember, I'm the one that sanded that floor in the Macedonia church, that got down on my hands and knees where none of these newcomers were even around. I'm the one that, along with the former Commissioner Solari's wife, she came and helped me sand that floor. I varnished that floor. I fixed the electrical. I put in the fans. I do want this museum, but I will not do it for the sake of just doing over a cemetery. We have other parcels of land in Gifford that can be used to put this museum, but not at the cost of people, not to desecrate, not just for convenience, not where they did it to us, or all this rhetoric that I'm hearing, and to infer that I have an ulterior motive. I love Gifford. I don't have to be here. I don't have to fight the fights I fight. But I, again, acknowledge the fact that you're doing your due diligence. We want the museum. I want the museum. It has never been about me. I don't care about being in the room. I don't care about being a part of the planning committee, but I want it done right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Good morning, sir. Name and address for the record.
Good morning, County Commissioners. My name is Dale Dawkins, 8686 65th Court, Vero Beach. I'm not here to talk about not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about how we get this done, okay? I think it'd be huge and significant for our community. Now, my concern would be, when can you all get this done so our project can move forward?
We will start on that today.
That's what's important to us in the community. Like our president said, we want to make sure everything is done appropriately. We want to be very respectful. Everything in the lease, that's been in the lease so far, has shown that we have done all of our due diligence, stated what we would do in the event that there was something there. But I think, like you guys have decided today, if we go on and figure out who's there, what's there, get everything, get all those questions answered, I think that is important, and we need to do it. But I'm hoping that the commissioners will decide to do that sooner rather than later, so we can move forward. Thank you guys so much for hearing us and your concerns for that property. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good morning. My name is Wilford Hart, 61719 Place Southwest, Vero Beach, Florida. I'm on the board of this organization here. I got on this board just for these reasons, be honest with you. That's why I got on this board, because I know that I knew somebody in our community. Chair, I'm talking to you. I'm going to stick it with you. Going to pull this project back. People like my father and everybody wants to say Miss Washington, and countless others, you can go back farther than that, have worked diligently on these projects. Now, to be honest with you, project like this going to benefit the school district. Project like this going to benefit Gifford as a whole, right there in that area, because students can walk from Gifford Middle School, or they can leave Dodgertown. We're already talking about it. That's a prime spot. And for the record, my uncle lived right there, and I used to run through there as a little kid scared, because thinking one of them dead white bodies was going to get up and run behind me, if you want to know the truth. Because I ran to the gym. We would go to the gym back in the days, and the gym was open. This project is so important to the Gifford community as a whole. You got more white folks talking about this project than black folks in our community that really want to participate in the growth. Look at the folks at Riverside Theater. Look at the folks at Riverside, at the Vero Beach Museum of Art, $20-some million like it's nothing. You got Riverside Theater, they're expanding like it's nothing. And then we have the Gifford Performing Art. And all. You have new projects going on in our community, right there on that script right there. And I'm going to tell you for the record, I'm expecting for all 5 of y'all when this happens, we're going to dig up them dead bodies if there are any dead bodies in there. But I need a 5-0 vote, and I'm going to tell you why. It's a lot of money on the line. I raise money every day for the school district, and if I go out there and tell people one commissioner, county commissioner said no, they're going to ask me why. So I need 5 votes. We want to be able to raise the money. You say it got to be in the bank. And I'm expecting this money to be in the bank. And I need to be able to go out there and ask people and say the commissioners supported this project. And it's just that important to you as well as to us, and not just in the black community. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's limit our applause, please. We didn't applause for other speakers. Any other speakers? Good morning.
Not always. Good morning. For the record, Stan Bowling, 29th Court. Proudly living in the unincorporated area of the county for many years. I'm not on the Gifford Museum and Cultural Center board, but I am an advisor to the board. I've been in a lot of meetings, been involved really with the site itself for many years. In fact, I was there along with my wife Angela, who does serve on the board for the Gifford Museum and Cultural Center, during a workday landscaping out there around the Macedonian Church. I'm an office guy, as most of you know, but I did learn green side up, right? Green side up, did the sod, and I was one of the guys that was working around markers. I'm like, wait a second, what's this here? And what I heard then is what I've heard ever since from historians, people there. There's no bodies underneath those headstones that are out there. But you sure, walk around them a little bit and you put down the sod and you go on your way. Like what's been said, the county quickly doing this more strategic sort of ground penetrating radar, that's great. Just like you all said 5 years ago, unanimous 5-0 vote, and Wilfred's right, 5-0 vote is what's needed. This is the right spot for the Museum and Cultural Center. It is in the heart of Gifford. It's been developed for a health center, which is great. It's got a walking trail around it, some parking, a restroom. It's got the old Macedonian Church. It's been developed over the years. And what is proposed with this project is a build-out plan. And it's a master plan for the rest of the park, above and beyond the Museum and Cultural Center. It's the right place for it. And knowing all the facts is very important. And I understand you guys not wanting to move forward until you've got more facts in hand. But I would just leave you with this. I'm a friend of Gifford. I love Gifford, and I will be walking beside folks as long as I am able. And that's great. I don't pretend to walk in anybody else's shoes. But to have abandoned, forgotten folks, were they white folks? We don't know. Is it acceptable, really, to not know? Is it acceptable, really, to have them forgotten and abandoned? Or is it better to know, to respectfully work with anything that might be uncovered, reinter them into a place where they're honored and remembered? Because right now, it's a rumor. Right now, it's forgotten. It's not dignified right now. That's my perspective. Finding out more is good, but this is the right spot, and a more dignified way is an opportunity. That's the way that I look at it. And of course, with everything, timing is important, and we appreciate you all saying that you'll spend the money and do it quickly and work with the folks on the museum board. This is the right place. More improvements are already proposed from your own recreation plan at MLK Park to finish the park out. That all needs to be done. We're partners. Let's keep moving forward together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me, Richard Bialowski.
Excuse me for one moment.
I just want to say, Stan Bowling has been there throughout this project. He used to have a little office down the hallway. And he has attended every meeting. And Stan, I appreciate your commitment. I just wanted to share that we had a conversation. I have had other conversations about an alternative site to derail all of this, to bring it so that the mission can be achieved, to go over to the other site, the Brownfield site, which we have access to. But I realize the sentiments that we should not be doing that, and I'm grateful that everybody's accepting that we need to look at this head-on so that we can go forward, as opposed to, well, choose another site and we can build that pretty building and get that cultural event and experience happening. So I just want to say that publicly, Stan, because you did spend time with it too.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, what's been done so far has been done in a matter where, fortunately, nothing's come up. right? And the health department and the county work together with the walking trail to try to avoid areas. You try to avoid areas. Fortunately, nothing came up. But this is the right site for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Richard Bialowski, resident of Indian River County. I can't speak with the passion of the previous speakers, particularly the one who did the beautiful invocation this morning, but I can speak to some very practical things. There's one piece of information here that's new, and that's thanks to Commissioner Adams, about a more refined procedure for ground penetrating radar. This came to our attention early on in the process, and when we went to planning for our pre-application review, we brought it to their attention. We submitted that GPR study that was done. At the time, my understanding, talking to folks about GPR, is it was indeterminate. I mean, there might be an old wheelbarrow, a tree stump, a cow, you don't know. So we proposed that in the course of construction, in the very beginning, we would excavate those sites in question with some sort of monitor. I don't, archaeologist, I don't know who the appropriate monitor would be, and if something was discovered, we would take the appropriate steps. Now, it could be more complicated than we assumed in the beginning, but and excuse me for using AI as a source of information, because my wife just went through a nightmare of being led in the wrong direction by ChatGPT for 5 hours. But they say that the cost of reburial is $1,500 to $2,500. So let's say it's $10,000, and let's say every one of those 11 sites is a body. That's, for a $20 million project, that's not a great big deal. Timing could be a problem if all of a sudden you find something and you're held up for a year, but if we're organized, we can certainly deal with that. And if we can do a sophisticated GPR study now and know exactly what needs to be done, that's fabulous. But we have some timing issues that we face that I just want you to be aware of. One, we would like to be able to submit for approval. Now, I know that Mr. Tkanich was, and Stan had a conversation. We didn't, staff didn't want us to submit until the lease was approved. I was surprised they didn't want to approve the lease until staff had approved the project. I don't know, which is the chicken and the egg, but I'd like your approval that we could submit for major site plan approval with this, the lease is a contingency of that final approval, so we can keep going. The other thing is our fundraising effort is the cornerstone of this whole thing. We got a lot of money to raise, and there's a lot of optimism about our ability to do that, but we can't do that if we don't have a lease. We can't do that if we don't have project approval, because who would contribute to a project like that? So I'm kind of hoping we can find a way to fast track this, possibly make this refined GPR study a condition of approval, something that in the major site plan approvals, something that would allow us to move forward on the lease, with maybe the lease being contingent upon major site plan approval being contingent upon doing this sophisticated GPR study and knowing what we're facing, but just something that would allow us to keep going and not lose momentum. There was never any intention to disrespect that cemetery. I think that was clear from what we submitted to planning staff and what we recommended they would obligate us to do to deal with that. Now, I know there are a lot of headstones there, but Ruth Standridge told me that the reason a lot of those are there is that they were too heavy to move. And they're really functionally cenotaphs, just like the Memorial Island in the city. They're not grave markers. They were grave markers once upon a time. So again, if you can possibly struggle with some concept that would allow us to move forward with major site plan approval, keep this on track so we can get to our fundraising effort, and know that we absolutely acknowledge the situation, possible situation under the ground, and respect that we all, county and applicant, have obligations to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bruce Parquette. I was just asked to draft the initial version of this lease, which I've done, but I want to thank Jennifer for working with Peggy to refine it, and I want to thank Susan for doing the research that she did. That's great. I just want to say two things need to happen. Two things need to happen. One, what Susan suggested, what Commissioner Adams suggested needs to happen. We need to find out where the bodies are, and I appreciate that the commission is willing to do that. And secondly, at some point, this lease needs to be signed and this project needs to happen. So if we could get an expression of support, which I think we already have from the commissioners, that at some point this will be done, that's great. And I think I support what Commissioner Adams proposed, which is get the bodies found and let's see what's out there. Anyway, those are the two things I think need to happen, and they need to happen at this location. Stan Bowling is absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Lipton. I live at 760 23rd Place Southwest. I'm afraid I'm going to really get emotional about this. I've been involved with Johnny May Perry before she had a 501c3. She was talking about wanting to make a museum out of the old church that was sitting over on 45th Street. It was used as a storage unit. Storage. The county kept crap in there, all the stuff they didn't know what else to do with. And yes, we knew there was a cemetery there, but we were assured that there were no bodies under the building. We don't know that to be true unless we do this GPR, which we talked about doing then and has not been done. I was on the original board, the founding board, and I'm very connected to this, and I want it to go forward in an appropriate manner. And yes, we need to be respectful if there are graves there, but certainly the bodies could all be moved to one area, and it could be solemnly put aside as a cemetery and acknowledged as that, and then the project could go on. I did bring a copy of this magazine with me. I hope you've all seen it. I hope you've all seen the article on the inside about the museum. It's quite beautiful. What's going on there is beautiful. It will make Gifford really stand out on the map. Thank you for your considerations.
Thank you. Any further comments? Commissioners, I think we have some type of a consensus, not only with our fellow commissioners, but with our friends that are here today. Who would like to memorialize this?
The senior commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, it's been a long journey, as Stan Bowling said, 2019. I understand that there's a concern of, hey, time is ticking, let's get it done. I don't believe that the advanced GPR, which will have the results, we need everyone to realize that there's going to be an outcome from that scan.
Correct.
Okay? And everyone needs to prepare for what that outcome is and what the cost factor could be, whether it's in human cost, financial cost, or the cost to the project. But I'm glad that we're all agreeing that this has to be done. It removes all vagueness and ambiguity. So, County Administrator, can we find the funding to do this?
We're going to pursue a grant.
Yes, we will. I will get with Kristen. We will look at the budget, and we'll get the quotes, and I'll get with Susan on her contacts at the state to find out who are contractors that are available, and then we'll move forward with it.
If we start pursuing grants, we
could
might
take
not see
a grant
being
cycle
done
could take
on
over
this
a year.
millennium. I'm just it's going to take some time. So I rather direct staff to seek and obtain at whatever cost it is, to ensure that we have the advanced GPR for this project, as this is county taxpayer-owned land, and it's our responsibility to clarify all of the ambiguity and vagueness as to the discovery of the contents of this land.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
We have a motion. We have a second by Commissioner Adam. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, friends, for joining us today. Our next matter includes public comment for any non-agenda related matters. Public comment, any non-agenda related matters. You will have your opportunity after the gentleman in the peach shirt.
Quiet down a little bit.
Good morning. Name and address?
Can you hear me okay?
No, speak up a little bit, Josh.
Good morning. Josh Miller, Fellsmere, Florida. I spoke a little bit ago. Some time ago, the county had accepted a grant from the state of Florida for the Broadband Opportunity Program for internet in rural areas. I live in one of those rural areas. 3 weeks ago, I sent an email to the county administrator and to the county attorney, as well as certified mail with documents that document my property. And clearance, I'm looking for clarity on the actual right-of-way that may or may not exist for that line that went in. I spoke with the contractor, and he's willing to revert around my property, which I'm open to, but the word is out, and we're a small community, and now everybody's starting to think the same way. Well, his concern is he can't put boxes in the area where everybody travels on. So I reached out to the county. Like I said, 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call confirming my email, and I'm expecting a response this week. But basically, if the right-of-way exists, fine, I'm good with it, but I don't believe it does. And my concern is if we allow it to go in, the precedent set for future utilities to use this land that I planned on using myself. Now, I've been there 6 years. I made a lot of improvements to my drainage. I got an engineer involved. I'm changing my whole property, the way it drains off my property. And I'm reaching out to St. John's to get their blessing on that, but this impacts my plans. So, impacts my fence line and everything. So to me, I want to make sure I don't, slow down progress per se, but at the same time, I need clarification that the right-of-way exists to move forward. So I'm just basically putting it on record that I approached you on this matter, and I'm surprised you haven't from anybody else yet, but there isn't any right-of-ways out there other than a drainage right-of-way by the Fellsmere Water Control District. There's an interlocal with the county to maintain the dirt paths along the ditch, but there isn't anything else right-of-way related for municipal use or any type of easement.
Okay,
So-
Mr. Miller, do we have your address?
Mr. Tiktanik has it, and as
Oh,
well as
okay.
Ms. Schuler. Yeah, everybody's on, I'm just putting on record that I spoke to you and let everybody know that you'll probably hear this again from other people.
Okay.
We're a small community, and we've been very involved, especially with the whole separation of the district. No, Ms. Adams knows who I am, so. That's it. That's all I want to do, was just
Okay,
put it out
thank
there. Hopefully I get a response and we can move forward.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Good morning. Name and address for the record?
My name is Spencer Taft, 755 Anita Avenue. Just recently, I'm sure you guys are aware of the flock cameras issue. I just wanted to know what you guys know about that, if you had any decisions involving that, because I've seen multiple in the past couple weeks. They just kind of popped up. I wanted to know if there's any has the county made any decisions involving that, and what is kind of the recent updates on the installment of flock cameras in Indian River County?
Well, first of all, we typically don't engage with public comment. I will say we don't fund flock cameras. Those are all funded through an independent constitutional officer and the sheriff.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joel Molinari, 54th Avenue, Vero Beach.
A couple weeks ago at the commission meeting, Ms. Sherry Epstein presented you guys with, I think, a letter and some talk about our culvert project. I wasn't able to be here. I got here about a little before 10, and that item was moved up, so I didn't make that part of the meeting. The statement made by Sherry had some inconsistencies and probably some I don't know how to categorize it. It wasn't correct. Some of the pipe sizes she mentioned, some of the logistics were not quite correct. I'll submit something to you guys at some point with the pipe sizes. I think she said 32 or whatever it was. We have an 84-inch pipe now that was upsized from a 60-inch pipe. That wasn't on the Raintree Corners residence. I'll nutshell this by saying the upgrades in that project from years ago will be on the water district, but because the county ran the project, we still have not gotten a lot of information from the county on how this was, how it was bid, how it was awarded. It was supposed to come back to the county board, from our understanding, and it didn't. It went through a purchase order process. So Ms. Epstein did make some of those observations and speak some of those things at that particular meeting. I will correct what I can in writing from a standpoint of her, what she stated that I don't think was correct. The thing I think we definitely agree with is that the cost of that entire project was about $120,000 more than we expected. We are really questioning the process. I'm kind of disappointed Commissioner Ehrman had to leave because he was at one of the meetings that we had with residents. I don't think any minutes were taken to that meeting. That's an issue. But because we are not the sole user of that culvert, I feel like we've absorbed a lot of the cost. We're going to absorb a lot of the cost of that, the increase in size, the maintenance, when much of that need for the increase in size has come from development over the last 30 plus years. So I guess the responsibility, the entire responsibility, we've never said we want anything for free from the county. What we've said is we think there's let me back up. And stop me whenever you want because I'll come back and talk again. It's not a problem. We initially asked, there was a few homeowners on that block who could not afford the project up front. We initially asked for help financially from the county. What we ended up getting was a project run by the county. About 13 or 14 of us out of 16 could have paid the bill up front, and we will when that assessment comes. However, the county taking over the project, I think I called two of the commissioners immediately after, the 2 days after commencement of construction and said, hey, there's a 60% change order that just happened. That was an issue. And we were told if we stopped, we would incur costs. There's a lot of holes in the game. We really want to know what was communicated inter-office in the county, who made the decisions, and I'll finish with this. I feel like what's happened here is the commission maybe didn't get all the information. I'm not sure who communicated with who. And I also feel like the commission at some point circled the wagons and said, let's take care of the county machine as opposed to the residents. And this is not just a Raintree Corner issue. This is not just a 16 resident issue. If things were handled like this in our project, with a lack of communication and misinformation even, what's happening in a bigger picture? How is this spread out? This is not the only project that's happening like this. So if there wasn't due diligence done in the bidding and awarding process, there certainly wasn't communication with us as the payers of the project. So if that's happening in this instance, and we're still months later, turned a 3-week project into a 4-month project, and it's still not done. this is a wider issue. It's a wider spread issue. And again, I feel like that at some point, even, again, he's not here to defend himself and he may not comment anyway, but I felt like it went from, hey, let's help you with this to let's circle the wagons and make sure the county machine is protected as opposed to the residents.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Valeri. During public comment, we do not engage with the speakers,
Yeah,
but
fair
I
enough.
can assure you that our administrator has been taking notes, and we will have our comments forwarded to you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Doug Bergman, 1226 33rd Ave, southwest of Vero Beach. I thank you for the board giving us this time to speak, and I understand just being here, you have a lot of pressing matters that were brought to you, but a matter that is very passionate to myself and several of my neighbors is excessive speeding on our street. And so my wife and I, we've been there for about 3 years, and we've just noticed excessive speeding on our roads. And one of the issues, after seeing an individual fly by a wife or a mother pushing her carriage, it really started to get under my skin to make this more of a passion of mine to sit there and start looking into how we can start to curb this. And so I reached, based off advisement, I reached out to traffic engineering about lowering the speed limit because it's posted at 30. It always seemed kind of odd that in a residential neighborhood being 30 miles an hour. And then I learned that all county dirt roads were posted at 30 miles. That's what I was told. But that was many years ago. This has been paved, I believe, for about 15-ish years. It's a paved road now through this residential neighborhood. So after contacting traffic engineering, I was told, based off of their studies, that lowering speed limits do not do anything to curb that. Well, I understand that to an extent because, you know, there are individuals, regardless of the speed limit, they're going to speed. But then I also rebutted with that. I said, if that is so true, well, then why don't you post 30 miles out in front of hospitals, schools, and the very building that you work at? Because if it doesn't do anything, 30 miles would be insignificant. But it does. But sadly, we live in a society that once we see when a speed limit is posted, that is the max. But as a society, we look at as more of the minimum. So we see 30, so it means we can do 33, 35, and that's still the speed limit to us. But being on this county road that I have pictures, well, again, on our road, it's a standard 20 feet wide. There's no sidewalks. You come right off your grass and you're into the road. So when you're standing there, and if you have your family, small kids, and someone wings by at 35 miles an hour, and especially how many people have cell phones in their hand, it just, you know, makes you very nervous, obviously, just to be out in front of your house and to be able to enjoy life. Because there's not only kids that play out there, there's families that play.
What was the block of 33 to 33rd?
It's 33rd Ave Southwest.
Of what block?
Well, we live on 1226, so we're 12th, but.
So you're south of Oslo?
Yes, Southwest, yes.
Okay.
So I reached out after this going back and forth debate, then I said, hey, can you do some type of speed study? It was acknowledged. There was speed sensors put down on, I believe it was May 4th to the 5th. It was 1 day. I asked for that data. For some reason, I could not get that. So I reached back out. I'm fairly persistent. So then they did this again. So I actually have the data right here. And this is from your traffic engineering department. On 1 day, this was on Saturday, May 30th, 1 day, we had speeds of greater than 60 miles an hour, 16. Of that 16, 7 were doing plus 70 miles an hour. 4 are doing greater than 75. Okay, and if it's greater than 60, it could be 63, 64, whatever. This is more than double what that does. Now again, with this, but this is an excessive. 45 miles and greater, this is 1 day. 32, 1 day. Greater than 40, 51. So if any of you have ever stood out in the street and have somebody wing by you at 40, 45 miles an hour right next to you, it's going to make your heart jump, and especially if there's loved ones right next to you. So on this 1 day, on just the northbound, 52% were under 30, 48 were over 30, which again, 27% percent is 30 to 34, 10% of those speeds is 35 to 39. Because again, we live in a society, we see a speed limit, 32, 34, hey, that's all the speed limit. I've literally gotten in debates with people. I get out there, my wife is sitting in the back. Sadly, there's, I pray the Lord that a confrontation doesn't happen, because I am out there, because I'm advocating for my neighbor's kids, moms and families with strollers, walking dogs. Again, there's not only kids at play, there's families at play. And my wife likes to bike right around, so also her life matters. All my neighbors' lives matters, and that's who I'm advocating here for. So again, when we see these speeds, to sit there and say, hey, just dropping it to 25 or 20, will that solve everything? No. I've also been in contact with Sergeant Smith of the Motor Patrol. Though he is terrific and he's been assisting, he has limited resources. They can only post somebody out so often. And really to make that impact, because there are no traffic controls. From Oslo to the back of 33rd, is basically, it starts with 15th Street to end of 14th. It's basically a mile long. So when people are home, or coming, or families, they wing straight down. There is no stops, there's no four-way stop signs, there's all stop signs the other direction, but it's a straight shot. There's no speed bumps, no four-way stops. So again, once I got the news that, hey, based off of this, looking at this number, this is again, one day. On a Sunday, we've had, the very next day, it's a Sunday, hey, let's go for a Sunday drive. No, we like to speed on Sundays, because we even had individuals doing over 50, 55, 60 miles an hour on a Sunday. Have to get to that picnic. Gotta do it.
Sir, we, in the interest of our public speaking criteria, we certainly appreciate that. We have made adequate notes about that. We have your information, I presume, from our traffic division. We will be in touch with you.
So somebody will reach out to me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Can you stay after and I'll get your information just to make sure I follow up?
Happen right now, today.
Yeah, we're going to take care of it right now if you have time to stick around, sir. Any other public comments? Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is David Aiello, 125 Congress Street, Vero Beach. I'm here because I live at Heritage Plantation, mobile home park out on 82nd Avenue. We have serious health and safety concerns in that community, and I've been trying to address them with the county. I have met with Commissioner Ehrman and May 18th of this year.
I think I've spoken with you about some electric.
Yes, electric meter bases.
I think we had that one resolved.
Well, I haven't gotten any results yet, except that I did the survey and study of the electrical meter bases in the community, a 333-page report, and checked every single one. Presented that. It was to go to Scott McAdam, but I haven't been able to, his email box is full, so they get returned, and I copy the commissioner and his aide, Max, on that. That went to the deputy in building, and then they assigned an investigator who...
Did Max got your message?
Pardon?
Max got your messages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have an email chain here with all of that. So, on July 31st, Michael Collins, the investigator, emailed he would be on site at 9:30. He expected to issue citations for all the violations. There was, I think, 78 needed immediate attention. He did not show, and I emailed him and called and left a message on August 3rd. As of this date, the most egregious, where the transformer feed to the meter bus is exposed, anybody can walk over and kill themselves instantly at live voltage. I don't even have any yellow caution tape around it at this point. And so that's why I'm here today, because I've reached out, and now that it's been 3 months since my initial meeting with Commissioner Ehrman, and been over 6 weeks since I presented the study and the report. And again, I've had an indication that something was going to happen, but there has not been any follow-through.
And you have a relationship with FP&L?
I have contacted FPL. I have dealt with their regional manager, but this is not an FPL. It is not their property. It is the owner of the park owns the meter base.
Right.
And so it is their responsibility to repair, maintain. We've had situations since I've lived there 4 years. Most recently, just before that meeting in May with Commissioner Ehrman, people were out, there was a 1 meter base, 4 units. They were without power for 3 days. Prior to that, there was people without power for 12 days. It is unacceptable, and I'm trying to get.
And you're at the right place, sir, and I appreciate your time. We will have a representative of our agency contact you as well as whoever the principals are of that park. We cannot have that. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And make sure we have your name and number with our clerk.
Okay.
And your phone number, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more comments by the public? Kim, would you have something? No? Hearing none and seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.